Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review Slashlorette Party. Scream now or forever rest in peace.
Written and directed by Paul Ragsdale and Angelica de Alba, starring Ginger Lynn, Molly Souza, Nina Laney Kent, Brooke Morris, Andrew Brown, Robert Holloway, and Drew Marvick.
What is this? Some sort of horror-themed stripper costume?
This movie's about Bree, a bride-to-be who's having second thoughts with her marriage to her fiancé Dolph. The title kind of says it all. So her and her bridesmaids and maid of honor go up to a cottage along with Dolph and his groomsmen and best man and have a bachelor/bachelorette party where they're stalked by masked men who aren't here to party or sip out of penis straws. They're here to kill.
We have way bigger things to worry about than penis straws and shit.
So what do we like? I like that this is a micro-budget movie that's like a throwback that is pretty basic. You got a bunch of people going to a cabin and they're going to get killed in some capacity. You just have some people that are clearly the killers, like you see them, you know who the killers are right out the gate, and you're just here to see them do their thing.
Accompany that with great cinematography. I really liked how this was shot and the score. This just made for like a strong atmospheric film where like they are secluded and it's eyes on them and eyes on the cabin, and you get that like POV style as they're like walking through the woods or partying inside the cabin.
Oh my god, Bree, what happened to her?
I found her like this.
And much like many other movies like this, where you hear it's like kind of like a love letter to 80s horror, there's a lot of Easter eggs. I think one of my favorite Easter eggs isn't even a throwback to like a horror movie. Basically, everybody in this movie is named after a wrestler. We didn't actually notice this until like too late in the movie. John made it a joke because we saw Dolph. He made a Dolph Ziggler reference.
I was calling them Ziggles throughout the whole film.
And then I started to talk to John because I know Vanessa and Rob, and I know Vanessa loves Carmella, and Rob's name was Seth because he looks like Seth Rollins and he cosplays Seth Rollins. We started like, oh, Jimmy, Trinity, Eddie, Dean. We call him John now, by the way, Paul.
This is what you call a paradigm shift.
I thought our cast did a fantastic job. I enjoyed all of our characters. I hated Dolph.
Babe, make sure you clean up that shit on the floor before you come outside, okay?
He's like the type of character that you hate so much that you just can't wait to see him die. And like you feel bad for Bree, you feel bad for like Naya. There were likable characters and there were characters that you hated.
And it's a Slashlorette party.
Oh, is that the stripper?
The strippers are here?
All the women in the movie are babes, and we get some strippers in there, we get some nudity. It sounds sexist, but that's the whole point. You're supposed to care about how hot the babes are because they're going for the 80s vibe. I think Mandy was probably like a throwback to Tina, I think, like one of the twins. And shout out to her having like the best aim throwing her bra on dude's head. Like that was great. I was like, holy shit, they actually nailed that.
I liked our killers. One has his machete and the other has an axe, and when they kill, it's impactful. I liked it, especially because it was Rob and Drew. It's fun when it's people you know. Drew is a fantastic killer in a slasher. I loved him in this film.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with Drew, definitely check out his film, Pool Party Massacre. He pops up in a lot of indie movies because he loves indie film, and he plays a great killer. And while I don't want to give too much away, I will show at least one death just so you can see that there is some gore. I'll show you our first one, Mandy. Pour one out. I miss her already. But you can see that they put a lot of the budget into the production value as well as like the gore. When it came to the acting, everyone did a really solid job. I think the biggest standouts are Bree because she has to deal with a lot of stuff. She goes from a character that I didn't necessarily like into somebody who was really enjoyable. Naya was also excellent, and Alexa, I think, did a really great job. She's like the bubbly personality of the whole movie that's just trying to throw her friend a party, and unfortunately, it goes tits up.
Bree, I had this night planned out for you. Now it's ruined.
Dolph did a fantastic job making us hate him, because that's what you wanted to do.
Like, actually, like, I wanted to punch that guy. But we watched the outtakes, and he seems like a pretty good guy. A lot of these people are first-time actors, and they did a great job with what they were given, for sure.
You better get all your fun out now, because it's all downhill from here. Am I right?
Now, what didn't we like?
I wasn't necessarily sold on the story. I'm not going into this expecting like the most complex story. It's more of the story arc itself. I felt that our kills were too rushed. I thought that they could have did a better job spacing everything out.
If you look at films that this was clearly inspired by, usually they have like an intro or a false start of some sort to set up a killer and then cut to the story. Where here, it starts off really slow. So you're not like immediately invested because it's Bree speaking with her doctor.
Everything he does is so fucking annoying. I don't know when it happened. I just can't stand to be around him anymore.
Obviously that sets up the rest of the movie, but the fact that you don't have a little glimpse of like the slasher aspect until way down the road, you can kind of get thrown off by the pacing, especially in the first act.
We're gonna make sure we take care of her this weekend, right, ladies? Yes, there we go.
We had 2 kills early on to when our characters arrive to the cabin, and then there's a big gap before there's a whole massacre. And like, it's not that we're against the massacre, it's just there are some tropes that you look for, like someone leaves the cabin and finds a dead body, and then they have to go back and be like, hey, there's a killer here. And they kind of did it with Finn, but there wasn't enough time because the second he said there was a killer, the killer showed themselves.
He's dressed like Jason Myers.
In addition to this, I think the story and like the moral of the story is really kind of fucked to me.
But if one more girl runs away from me, I'm gonna go bananas.
It tries to get the audience to have sympathy for incels. It leaves a sour taste in your mouth. Like, I was all for having a slasher at a cabin, we're having fun, and then it gets really kind of dark when the motivations are revealed. And this comes in part with like the way that this movie ended. I really didn't like the ending. We won't talk spoilers about it, but it's just not very good. And there are even more like interwoven subplots of like domestic abuse because Dolph himself, like we said, we hated him, and it was because he was mentally abusing his fiance so that she felt trapped in this relationship.
Do you know how lucky you are to be with me? Do you know how embarrassing it is to be with a girl who has a mental illness?
It's not the lighthearted slasher you think of when you see the title Slashlorette Party, because that sounds fun. You look at the trailer, it's like all 80s vibes, and then once you actually get into like the last arc, you're like, ooh, this is dark. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. If you like indie slashers, you might enjoy this one because there's a lot of characters, there's a bunch of different kills, we've got some cool killers, and the production value is pretty solid. The main issues come with some of the characters because you might really hate a lot of people in this movie, and if you're like me, you might question why any of them are hanging out with each other, to be honest. Like, the only person I really want to hang out with are Naya and Alexa. Come to Niagara Falls. There's bachelorette parties here all the time. It's less creepy, except for some of the clubs are still pretty fucking creepy. But the biggest pain point for me was the story. And because there are aspects of this movie that are lighthearted, it's kind of dragged down by some of the mental health issues and the domestic abuse issues. It's kind of a mixed bag of feelings here. If you have the opportunity, I would recommend it, but it is worth noting it's not going to be this bubbly, lighthearted movie like you think it might be. So I'm gonna give this 2.5 heart-shaped purses out of 5.
When you look at the title and you look at the cast, you think this is exactly what I need in my life. It did get a little real with its motivations, and that was kind of a downer. I would have liked our kills spaced out more, and I didn't like the ending. But putting that all aside, I loved the actors. I thought everyone did a great job. Our characters were great. I liked our killers, and I liked how this film was shot. I like the cabin in the woods atmosphere, and they nailed it. There's a lot to look forward to, so with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 3 poke couches, because it looks like Pokeballs, out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Bloodbath and beyond.